Hello, welcome to geometry. Go ahead and turn your books to page 470. This is not really like a lesson, like the normal numbers like 67, 68. This is, looks like this, investigation 7. Oop, I'm gonna put my answers up there. So here you have that. According to this page, you have a box up there. We're learning about the trig functions. You have SOHCAHTOA. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse, O over H. Cosine is A over H. Tangent is O over A, and you have that there. So if you want to screenshot this, that is fine. For number 1, here it says there's a way to use your calculator for all of these, and it's here. Your sine, cosine, tangent button is up here, those 3 buttons there. Here, let's say for the first one, for x is 0 degrees. So on your chart, on your book here. So this right here. This has all the answers here, so it doesn't matter. You can just try on your own. Here, it says sine of x. So let's say sine is 0. So if we do the sine of 0, we end up with 0, and that would be the first answer here. So what you're doing is you're plugging in all of these numbers here for x in this column and finding what your sine, cosine, and tangent is. It's not homework or anything, it's just good practice for you to have with your calculator. But most of the time, especially in trigonometry and in pre-calculus, we deal a lot with terminal points. And terminal points all come down to this lesson here in geometry. If I take my red marker, and let's look at number 2. Number 2, we're dealing with the 2 special types of triangles, and this is called, it's in the unit circle. We deal with this later. And we have this here. This is what the juniors and seniors are doing now. But all those points all come into the fact that we use 2 main triangles, 45, 45, 90, and 30, 60, 90. Number 2 on that page, it says draw a 30, 60, 90 triangle. 30, 60, 90 triangle. The measurements for that is 1, radical 3, and then 2. Here they're saying to find the sine, the cosine, tangent of the 30 and of the 60 degrees. So we go ahead and do that. So for 30 degrees, we find the sine of it. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Opposite side is radical 3. Hypotenuse is 2. And we're done there. Cosine of 30. It's adjacent over hypotenuse. Adjacent is, this is a 1, over hypotenuse, which is 2. Also, if you put the cosine of 30 in your calculator, you end up with 0.5. But in this case, we want fractions, and keep it as a fraction. Do not put it as a decimal for your homework. Tangent. It's opposite over adjacent. So that means opposite side is radical 3. Adjacent side is 1. And then we're done there. Next one, 60 degrees. The sine of 60, now we're focusing on here. So opposite side of 60 is 1. Hypotenuse is 2. Cosine. Adjacent side of 60 is 30. And the hypotenuse is 2. And now tangent is opposite over adjacent. So opposite side is 1. Adjacent side is radical 3. But here we have to apply a different rule. We can't have a radical in the denominator. To get rid of it, you multiply numerator and denominator by that radical. And 1 times radical 3 is radical 3. Radical 3 times radical 3 is square root of 9. You could think of it that way. Or they cancel out, you end up with the whole number 3. Next one, we have 45, 45, 90 triangle. We have the sides being 1 and the hypotenuse being radical 2. Here we're going to find the sine, the cosine, and the tangent of each one. Sine, opposite, so we can focus on, it doesn't matter which one you focus on because it's the same measurement. So let's say here, opposite side, so opposite over hypotenuse, opposite side is 1, hypotenuse is radical 2. You can't have that. There's a radical in denominator, so you rationalize it. So then you get radical 2 over whole number 2. Cosine. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. Adjacent side is 1 again, and then radical 2. You can't have a radical denominator, so therefore you rationalize it. And you get radical 2 over 2. Tangent is opposite over adjacent. Opposite side is 1, adjacent side is 1, that equals number 1. And then that's where you get the different numbers. For your homework, I will give you different problems. I want it in fraction form unless I say put in your calculator and tell me what the number is, round to the etc., etc. All right, very short lesson. Make sure you're diligent. Miss you guys a lot.